Oh, nice. Yeah, we chose this time specifically because we saw that a lot of the members are 7 hours ahead of us. So right now it's 11 a.m. where we are, and I think for YZ it's probably 8 hours ahead. I know in Ukraine it's something like 7 hours, must be eight. I'm sorry, 6 p.m. where you are, right? Um, so we chose this time to get uh, better time for you guys. But yeah, we wanted to do this AMA to explain a little bit more about the project, show our backgrounds and give you, some confidence of on where the project is heading. So I'll just give you some background of myself, and then we're gonna start talking about Vera. So essentially, I started trading stocks when I was very young, and I got very interested in economics. And something that was always interesting to me was, boom and bust cycles on the financial markets, and I decided to study that. I study economics here at George Mason University in the U.S., and then I start trading full time on my own, developing some trading models, coming up with some economic theories, and then that's when we had the idea of Vera, which is essentially a currency to last forever because it tracks the entire market. I don't know if you guys had a chance to read the last article, but essentially, what would destroy the value tracking Vera is, total destruction of our capital markets because then there would be nothing to track. Uh, Instead of tracking our currency based on one commodity or one government or choosing to back by one protocol. I think that's very little. So we decided to create Vera, which is a currency that tracks the entire market. And by tracking the entire market, we have something solid, something you can pass through generations. So just giving me a little bit about my background. You guys can check our company too. It's called Ace Quants. We trade, mostly crypto. Uh, we have models going on the main exchanges. So I'm very happy to introduce a little bit about my background. I'll let Josh do the introductions, and then we can talk full time about the project and hear your questions.
Perfect. So I'm a Microsoft stack engineer for over 20 years. I've been working in crypto since 2013. Uh, I also worked in trading crypto and US futures for about 7 years, and about 4 of those years have been in specific algorithmic trading. I've also been a financial planner for about 3 years. I did that. And during this time, what really excites me about Vera is that I would notice many of the clients that I would talk to had wealth passed down from generation to the previous generation, but it was just in a savings account. So it was subject to inflation erosion. So at the end of the day, they ended up with less money than they had at the beginning of the day. And that's a serious problem. Their interest did not outpace inflation. So Vera, what I'm really excited about Vera is it solves that problem, right? It's an erosion-proof asset backed by the world's entire financial system, right? So if you have an entire collapse of a single element of a financial system, you're protected. I mean, if you have a global collapse, well then, finance is probably not your biggest problem. Let's put it that way. But, realistically, if a single asset class collapses, that could be devastating to anyone's portfolio. But with Vera, the way that we have it structured, and we'll talk a little bit about that, should protect us. So that's really what I'm excited about Vera.
Great, yeah, great introduction, Josh. He has a very strong background on the technical part. He'll be talking more about our vision on the technical side. But I think touching our first question for the AMA, the first question is why Vera is powerful and why it matters. And you know, as we mentioned early on our introduction, Vera is powerful because it's a currency tracking the global financial markets. There's nothing like it. Um, you have currencies right now that are backed by gold. If you guys you are familiar with the history of currencies, you know that before we had currencies that were tracked by gold, some were tracked by tobacco, some were tracked by copper, and all of them at some point they failed. We had empires like Roman Empire, we had British Empire. They all had like very strong currencies at some point, and all of them failed. And the question is always what happens to the money that investors had at the time? And if you think about it, most people lost a lot of money, so they could not pass the money to the next generation, to their kids, to their grandkids. So creating something like Vera, I think it brings a whole new meaning to the financial markets, which is perpetual value, something that you can hold forever. So if you hold Vera now, I know that if tomorrow I decide to pass this money through my generation to a trust fund that no one can touch, I know that will be meaningful and will still be valuable in 100 years, 200 years, unless we don't have financial markets. And as Josh mentioned, I think that's, if we don't have financial markets, probably that's not your concern anymore. Probably the world is coming to an end. So I think that's why Vera is powerful. Um, I think Josh could speak a little bit more about why it's powerful on a technical point, because we're bringing a lot of data that doesn't exist to chain, right?
Right.
So probably you doing aggregation. Maybe you could tell them why it's important to do aggregation of hundreds of assets that we are bringing, ETFs, commodities that they are not on chain right now.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're trying really hard to do, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, is the data that we have, right, is currently not available on chain, like Hannah was saying. So we are actually aggregating various different sources. So right now, the data that's available on chain is very limited, which leads to a lopsided portfolio. So our innovation right now, and we're working on partnerships that we'll talk about, that will allow us to get more and more of the data on chain to really widen our asset class. And that's part of the roadmap that we're going to be talking about, to getting all of these different components in place to really have as diverse a representation of the financial markets. And that's really where we're going to have this erosion proof. This is where we're going to have this, sustainability through the generations. And this is what we're really looking forward to. And then by then we would have achieved the full vision of Vera.
Great. Yeah, those are great points. I think something that the community is requesting from many places that we hear is what's our short term, what are goals, what are the next steps for Vera coming on the next month, next 3 months, let's put it this way. um, so at least from a recognition point of view, we are working on partnerships, right? We're going to talk a little bit more later, but partnerships, we're working on bringing a team of advisors and investors. We're starting talks with liquidity providers. So when we have Vera, the governance token, we can have pools on decentralized exchanges where people will be able to trade at a very low slippage. So if you want to trade Vera very quickly, you want to buy the token, you want to buy Vera the index, or you want to buy the Vera governance token. And we also coming with a program for all the early collaborators. I think we mentioned before on the main chat on Telegram, but giving out to the community and getting people to provide feedback. Definitely, everyone who's involved will be rewarded. Um, our governance token will be called VGV. Josh named in this case, and I thought the name was very nice. Essentially, I think it could stand for something like Vera governance, Vera governance token, but to look very nice, we call VGV something unique. We're gonna release probably 70 million tokens, and we're gonna have some early stage rounds where investors can participate. But of course, we'll be very we'll be very picky on the investors that we choose, because we want to have investors with the same vision. We want to have people in the crypto community that have influence. So that's something we are taking a step. We're taking steps very carefully. Uh, so I would say, summarizing, on the next 1 to 3 months, strong partnerships coming, uh, launch of our token. Uh, Besides that, increase our audience by providing articles, providing information. Josh, he will be providing tutorials on how to build on Solana, which is something you know new to everybody, and even to us. When we built Vera, we built essentially for the hackathon, and we built it in how many days, Josh? I think like in 7 days. We
Yeah, you
got it,
built it pretty quick.
the dev net ready.
Yeah, absolutely. And just continuing what
So
Hannah was saying, right? The goal really in the short term is going to be scale our reach, scale our investment options, scale our marketing efforts, really to scale our audience, right? So that's where we're focusing right now, is to make sure that we have as big a reach as possible in the most efficient way possible as well. And like I had mentioned earlier about expanding our asset class, and this is some of the partnerships that we're engaging in is really for that, is to increase the reach of assets that we have access to, and so by doing increase the utility of Vera at the same time.